There is a quiet, insidious poison that feeds exclusively on the intelligent. It does not arrive with the dramatic fury of a sudden tragedy, nor does it announce itself with the obvious warning signs of failure. Instead, it enters through the back door of a sharp, analytical mind. It settles into the quiet hours of the late night, disguising itself as wisdom, as self-awareness, as a noble refusal to settle for the simple, unexamined lives of the people around you. You tell yourself that you are merely thinking things through. You tell yourself that you are observing, analyzing, preparing, and protecting yourself from making a mistake. But as the days bleed into months, and the months quietly dissolve into years, a cold reality begins to set in. You are not preparing for life. You are hiding from it. In 1864, the Russian novelist Fyodor Dostoevsky published a short, jagged, uncomfortable masterpiece titled Notes from Underground. It was not written as a comforting piece of literature. It was written as a mirror, a stark, uncompromising psychological diagnostic tool aimed directly at the modern intellectual. At the center of this work stands a nameless narrator, known to history simply as the underground man. He is educated, acutely self-aware, deeply perceptive, and utterly paralyzed. He lives in a cramped, dark basement flat on the margins of St. Petersburg, cut off from human intimacy, consumed by resentment, and trapped in an endless loop of his own thoughts. He is, by his own admission, a sick man, a spiteful man, an unpleasant man. But his sickness is not a disease of the body, it is a disease of the mind. He is suffering from what Dostoevsky identified as the ultimate spiritual ailment of the modern era, hyper-consciousness. To be conscious is a gift. It allows us to reason, to create, to contemplate our existence, and to navigate the complexities of the world. But hyper-consciousness is the point at which the analytical tool turns back on its owner. It is the moment the intellect ceases to be a lantern, guiding your steps through the dark, and becomes a cage that locks you inside your own head. Consider how the underground man describes his own condition. He writes, "I swear to you, gentlemen, that to be overly conscious is a sickness, a real, thorough sickness. For the average person, the man of action, as Dostoevsky calls him, a problem presents itself, a decision is made, and an action is taken. If the man of action hits an obstacle, he reacts. If he is insulted, he demands satisfaction. If he sees an opportunity, he moves toward it. His mind and his instincts are fused together. His thoughts lead directly into the physical world. But for the hyper-conscious individual, a single decision is never just a single decision. It is an infinite branching tree of potential outcomes, motives, flaws, and hidden risks. When an insult is directed at the underground man, he does not simply react. He pauses. He begins to analyze the insult. He analyzes the person who uttered it. He analyzes his own reaction to the insult, and then he analyzes his analysis of his reaction. He looks at the situation from 50 different angles, dissecting every micro-motive until the original offense is buried beneath a mountain of abstract thoughts. By the time he finishes overthinking, the moment for action has long passed. He retreats back into his underground room, stewing in a toxic cocktail of unspent energy, self-loathing, and silent rage. He convinces himself that his inaction is a sign of his superiority, that he is simply too complex, too refined, and too deep to engage in the foolish, primitive games of ordinary people. But deep down, in the cold privacy of his own heart, he knows the truth. He did not choose not to act because he was wise. He failed to act because he was terrified. This is the central trap of the lonely mind. Overthinking creates a false sense of productivity. When you sit in a room for hours, running scenarios through your mind, breaking down your past failures, or mapping out elaborate futures, your brain feels as though it is doing heavy, important labor. You feel exhausted at the end of the day, not because you fought any battles in the real world, but because you fought 100 imaginary battles against yourself. You have burned through all your cognitive fuel, all your emotional bandwidth, and all your willpower without ever taking a single step forward in the physical realm. Psychologically, this state represents a complete severing of the mind from the instincts. When an individual retreats entirely into the intellect, they disconnect from the somatic, grounding wisdom of the body and the unconscious. The intellect becomes a tyrannical dictator, ruling over a kingdom of abstractions. It demands complete certainty before allowing any movement. But life, by its very nature, never offers complete certainty. Therefore, the hyperconscious mind demands something that reality can never provide. And so, it settles for the only safe alternative: permanent paralysis. Look around at the modern landscape. We are living through an epidemic of the underground. Never before in human history has a generation been provided with so much information, so much noise, and so many tools for self-analysis, while simultaneously being so utterly isolated from real, tangible, risky human connection. It has never been easier to sit in a dark room, surrounded by glowing screens, consuming philosophy, psychology, and commentary, convincing yourself that you are engaged in deep self-development, while your actual life slowly decays in the background. We read about action instead of acting. We study the psychology of connection instead of making ourselves vulnerable to another human being. We analyze our fears, label our traumas, and categorize our flaws with surgical precision, using our psychological vocabulary not as a bridge to healing, but as a sophisticated shield to keep the world at a distance. We have become a culture of underground men and women, brilliantly articulate, deeply perceptive, endlessly self-aware, and completely immobile. The underground man is not a monster. He is a warning. He is what happens when intelligence is detached from courage. He is what happens when the fear of making a mistake becomes greater than the fear of never truly living. If you leave hyper-consciousness unchecked, it will gradually convince you that the world outside your door is too shallow, too coarse, and too dangerous for someone as sensitive and complex as you. It will invite you to build a comfortable, dark, intellectual basement inside your mind. It will supply you with all the rationalizations you need to stay there. And if you listen to it, you will wake up 10 years from now, still sitting in that same dark room, still analyzing the life you were supposed to be living. When you cut yourself off from the external world, your mind does not simply go quiet. It turns inward and begins to feast on itself. The hyper-conscious individual becomes trapped in an agonizing paradox. On one hand, you feel superior to the crowds of people outside your window. You look at their simple ambitions, their mundane daily routines, their uncritical acceptance of popular culture, and you convince yourself that you are fundamentally different. You view your isolation not as a failure, but as a sacrifice, a burden born from having a mind that sees too clearly, feels too deeply, and demands too much meaning to participate in the shallow rituals of ordinary society. Yet beneath this fragile vanity lies a dark, festering layer of intense self-loathing. Because while you judge the man of action for his simplicity, you also envy him. He is out in the world, taking hits, building relationships, acquiring experience, and physically occupying space in reality. He is living, while you are merely observing life through a double-glazed window. You realize, with horrifying clarity, that all your refined intellect, all your deep psychological theories, and all your unspoken potential mean nothing to a universe that only measures execution. Dostoevsky captured this psychological torture with terrifying precision. The underground man spends his days obsessing over how people perceive him. If he walks down the street and passes an officer or a nobleman, he spends hours planning how he will walk past them, whether he will yield the sidewalk or if he will hold his ground to prove his worth. If he forces himself to attend a social dinner with old schoolmates, he sits in the corner for hours in rigid, uncomfortable silence, despising them for ignoring him, while simultaneously despising himself for being unable to speak like a normal human being. He wants desperately to be loved, admired, and understood, but his pride is so brittle that he preemptively rejects everyone before they have the chance to reject him. This is the psychological mechanism of projection at its most destructive. When you live inside your head, you cease interacting with real human beings. Instead, you interact with your internal projections of them. You look at a stranger and instantly construct an entire narrative about who they are, what they think of you, and why they would inevitably misunderstand or judge you. You assign motives to their glances, construct complex backstories for their casual comments, and invent silent slights that never actually occurred. You are fighting phantom wars against enemies who do not even know you exist. Consider what this does to your capacity for intimacy. Real human connection requires vulnerability. It requires stepping out from behind your intellectual armor, letting down your guard, and risking the possibility of being hurt, misunderstood, or rejected. For the hyperconscious mind, vulnerability feels like suicide. To be seen clearly by another person means admitting that you are not a tragic, heroic genius dwelling in sublime isolation. You are simply a flawed, insecure, lonely human being who is terrified of being known. And so, the overthinker develops a defense mechanism: acute cynicism. You begin to deconstruct everything. You dissect love until it becomes a mere chemical trick for biological reproduction. You dissect friendship until it becomes a transaction of mutual utility. You dissect ambition until it becomes a pathetic scramble for social status. You reduce every noble human emotion to its most cynical, materialist components, convincing yourself that because everything is ultimately flawed or temporary, nothing is worth pursuing. Psychologically, this cynicism is not enlightenment. It is cowardice wearing the mask of sophistication. It is a coping mechanism designed to protect your fragile ego from the pain of trying and failing. If nothing matters, then you don't have to risk anything. If everyone is fake or shallow, then you don't have to make an effort to connect. If every pursuit is ultimately meaningless, then your failure to accomplish anything is not a personal defeat. It is simply a rational response to an absurd world. This is how the mind builds its own prison, block by block, using logic as the mortar. You become like a lawyer prosecuting your own life. Every time an impulse toward creation, connection, or spontaneous action arises within you, your intellect immediately steps in to cross-examine it. Why bother starting that project? Thousands of people have done it better. Why reach out to that person? They are probably busy or disinterested. Why try to change your habits now? You've tried before and failed. The intellect produces endless arguments, supported by an overwhelming evidence board of your past mistakes and insecurities. And because the arguments are logical, you surrender to them. You mistake the logical strength of an argument for its existential truth. You forget that logic is merely a tool. If you feed it fear, it will manufacture logical reasons to stay afraid. If you feed it shame, it will construct flawless intellectual arguments for why you should remain hidden. The underground man understood this trap, even as he succumbed to it. He realized that his inability to act was not caused by a lack of reason, but by an excess of it. Reason, he observed, only satisfies the intellectual capacity of man, whereas wanting is a manifestation of the whole of life. When you rely entirely on pure reason to guide your life, you extinguish the primal, vital spark that drives human existence. The irrational, courageous, intuitive desire to simply exist, to risk, and to become. Without that spark, you remain stranded on the shoreline of your own life, endlessly studying the tides, calculating the wind speeds, and analyzing the structural integrity of the ship while watching other people, foolish, reckless, imperfect people, launch their boats into the deep waters and sail away. If you recognize yourself in the underground man, there is a dangerous temptation to treat this realization as just another piece of psychological trivia to analyze. You might feel a thrill of self-recognition, spend an hour reflecting on your own isolation, and then quietly return to the exact same patterns of overthinking that put you in the dark in the first place. That is the ultimate trick of the hyperconscious mind. It can even transform its own diagnostic mirror into a form of entertainment. To break the spell of the underground, you must accept a harsh, fundamental truth. You cannot think your way out of a problem that was created by overthinking. You cannot cure paralysis with more analysis. You cannot heal isolation with more theory. You cannot build courage by sitting in a chair and contemplating bravery. The cure for hyperconsciousness does not lie in discovering a new philosophy. It lies in the deliberate, systematic surrender of pure intellect in favor of physical action. Dostoevsky offered us the diagnosis, but the existentialists who followed offered the prescription. Existence precedes essence. You are not defined by the complex, hidden potential floating inside your head. You are defined exclusively by what you physically do in the world. If you spend 10 years dreaming of writing a book, but never write a page, you are not a writer waiting for the right moment. You are someone who does not write. If you spend years contemplating deep connection, but never risk opening your heart, you are not a tragic romantic. You are someone who stays hidden. To step out of the basement, you must lower your standards for certainty. The man of action is not fearless. He has simply made peace with the reality of incomplete information. He understands that every step forward into the physical world involves risk, error, and embarrassment, and he accepts those costs as the price of admission for being alive. He would rather fail in the tangible world than maintain a pristine, untarnished reputation inside an imaginary one. You must begin small, with unrefined, unanalyzed action. When an impulse to act arises, an impulse to create, to speak, to clean your physical space, or to reach out to another human being, you must move before your analytical mind has time to step in and cross-examine it. You must shorten the gap between impulse and execution until your intellect no longer has the space to construct its elaborate towers of hesitation. Stop treating your life as a draft that can be perfected in isolation before it is shown to the world. Life is a live performance. There are no rehearsals, no retakes, and no quiet backstage rooms where you can hide until you feel completely ready. Ready is an illusion, manufactured by a mind that wants to guarantee safety in a world that is inherently unsafe. The underground is a comfortable prison because it protects you from judgment, but it pays for that protection with your soul. Step out of the dark. Embrace the risk of being foolish, the pain of being imperfect, and the terrifying beauty of a life actually lived.